Yavat, as long as. Hataha asmi, I am now being killed by others. Hanta asmi, I am the killer of others. Iti, thus, Atmanam, own self. Manyate, he considers. Asvadrak, one who has not seen himself because of the darkness of the bodily conception of life. Tavat, for that long. Tat abhimani, regarding himself as the killed or the killer. Agyaha, a foolish person. Badya badakatam, the worldly transaction of being obliged to execute some responsibility. Yat continues. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Arvinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. In the bodily conception of life, one remains in darkness without self-realization, thinking, I am being killed or I have killed my enemies. As long as a foolish person thus considers the self to be the killer or the killed, he continues to be responsible for material obligations, and consequently he suffers the reactions of happiness and distress. Please repeat the translation. In the bodily conception of life, one remains in darkness without self-realization, thinking, I am being killed or I have killed my enemies. As long as a foolish person thus considers the self to be the killer or the killed, he continues to be responsible for material obligations, and consequently he suffers the reactions of happiness and distress. Purport. By the grace of the Lord, Kamsa felt sincere regret for having unnecessarily persecuted such Vaishnavas as Devaki and Vasudeva, and thus he came to the transcendental stage of knowledge. Because I am situated on the platform of knowledge, Kamsa said, understanding that I am not at all the killer of your sons, I have no responsibility for their death. As long as I thought that I would be killed by your son, I was in ignorance. But now I am free from this ignorance, which was due to a bodily conception of life, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 18.17. Yasya nahankrito bhavo buddhir yasya na lipyate hatvapi sa imaloka nahanti na nibadhyate. One who is not motivated by false ego, whose intelligence is not entangled, though he kills men in this world, is not the slayer, nor is he bound by his actions. According to this axiomatic truth, Kamsa pleaded that he was not responsible for having killed the sons of Devaki and Vasudeva. Please try to excuse me for such false external activities, he said, and be pacified with the same knowledge. That ends the Bhaktivedanta purport and translation to Canto 10, Chapter 4, Text 22 of Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. नमावों विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणि प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Aswadrik manyate. When one is in the bodily conception of life, a swadrik. Swadrik means to be able to see one's self. Swa means oneself. Drik means to see. A swadrik means one who cannot see himself as the spirit soul. That means then what is he seeing? He is only seeing the body. Therefore, aswadrik refers to bodily conception of life. So when one is in the bodily conception of life, then uh, one is said to be in darkness without self-realization. Then in this state of consciousness or understanding of oneself, manyate, one uh, thinks, considers, hato asmi, hanta asmi. One thinks like this. What is that? Hataha asmi, I am being killed by others, and hanta asmi, I am killing others. In this case, if you see, hata asmi, he is thinking, I am going to get killed by Krishna. And hanta asmi, in Kamsa's context, refers to, I have killed so many sons of Devaki. So, hata asmi, hanta asmi. He is thinking that he is going to get killed by Krishna. He is thinking that he has killed so many sons of Devaki. This thinking manyate is because of asvatrik, being in bodily concept of life. So, Kamsa himself is telling this. Yavat agyaha. So long, as long as, yavat means as long as agyaha, one remains foolish. Tat abhimani, considering, tat abhimani, here tat refers to the soul, one's self. Abhimani refers to the act of being killed or killing. So, yavat, as long as agyaha, one foolishly thinks tat abhimani, that the self or oneself is the killer or being killed, bhadya bhadakatam yat. Tavat, so long. Yavat is as long as one is thinking that the self is the killer or being killed, so long. That means that long. Tavat bhadakatam yat. That long he continues. Yat means he continues to be responsible for his actions. Prabhupada calls it as material obligation. People talk about, I'm obliged, I have obligation, I have this duty, that duty. So many things people talk about. uh, so so long one remains, as long as one remains foolish in the bodily conception of life, thinking oneself to be the doer, in this case the killer, or being killed, either way, then that long, tavat yat, he continues to be badya badakata, continues to be responsible for all his actions or material obligations, and therefore he has to suffer the reactions of happiness and distress thereof. See how scientific this is. Axiomatic truth. What is that? As long as one is absorbed in the bodily conception of life, thinking oneself to be the doer, till that much time he becomes responsible for all his actions performed in the bodily concept of life. And therefore, consequently, because of this, the result is he has to suffer material happiness and distress. That means reverse the whole equation. It's a scientific equation. Reverse the whole equation. That means if you're not in bodily concept, then you are not responsible for any material activities. Then there is no reaction either in terms of happiness or suffering. That means you are a liberated soul. This is the axiomatic truth here. Beautifully explained, even by Kamsa. Prabhupada began the purport very nicely by saying, by the grace of the Lord, Kamsa felt sincere regret for having unnecessarily persecuted such Vaishnavas as Devaki and Vasudeva. And thus he came to the transcendental stage of knowledge. That means even for demons, Rakshasas, Asuras, Krishna is so kind and merciful. Sometimes he gives them opportunity to become enlightened. Even Rakshasas, Asuras, demonic persons also Krishna gives opportunity to become enlightened. Now whether you want to take that opportunity or not is in your hand. Kamsa took that opportunity now, but the unfortunate thing is, we will see very soon in the subsequent verses, because of his association with the demonic persons, he again changed his mentality. He got purified. He was demoniac, but he was enlightened with transcendental knowledge by the grace of Krishna. Prabhupada says that. By the grace of the Lord, Kamsa felt sincere regret. Demonic persons don't regret for their actions, bad actions. But here, by the grace of the Lord, Kamsa did feel sincere regret. But that didn't remain or last long, because he, whatever transcendent knowledge he gained, he shared with his demoniac friends and associates and members in his assembly, in his palace. This all happened night time, and the next day Kamsa calls all his ministers, and then they advise him in a demoniac way and instigate Kamsa. No, 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 Kamsa, let's go ahead killing all the babies who are born 10 days before. Let's not spare anyone. So Kamsa again succumbed to the demoniac association or influence. So Karanam Guna Sangosya. This is the danger of association. The negative aspect of association. If you associate with demonic persons, characterless persons, then you also become demonic and develop those qualities. But if you associate with saintly persons, then you will associate saintly qualities of compassion, kindness, forgiveness, transcendental knowledge, freedom from ignorance, freedom from bodily concept of life, freedom from greed, etc. But here comes at this point of time, by the grace of the Lord, was elevated to the point of transcendental knowledge. And therefore he is speaking this very, very esoteric, special, highly elevated knowledge, which is given in the Bhagavad Gita. In the very second chapter, Krishna has spoken about this. So let's understand a little more detail now. We're talking about this bodily conception of life. What is this bodily concept or bodily conception of life? Because we always talk about this for many devotees and people. It's very difficult to understand. What do you mean by bodily concept of life? Always we keep talking about bodily concept, bodily concept. What is bodily concept? So, to know that, you should know first of all, there are two things. There is the body, then there is the soul. Now, when you think that you are this body while actually being a soul, that is called being bodily conscious. Actually, you are a spirit soul covered by this material body. But if your understanding is, instead of thinking you are a soul, you think you are this body, that is being in bodily concept. If you live a life based on this understanding that I am this body, that is bodily concept of life. How does it translate in practical life? How do you know that you're in bodily concept or not? How do you detect? This is an investigation, right? How do you know that you are self-realized or you're in bodily consciousness? How do you know? How do you check? How do you detect? How do you investigate? So when your understanding is you are this body and lead an entire life centered around this understanding, that means you are in bodily concept of life. So how does it practically translate? That means you care only for the body and bodily needs in action. Your goal of life is sense gratification, because body means senses. Bodily gratification or sense gratification, that's the goal of life. You want to enjoy the senses to the maximum, enjoy this body to the maximum. That means you're in bodily concept. You want to give as much comfort as possible to this body and to the senses. No discomfort, no pain. You don't want to give any pain to this body or to the senses or to your mind. Any difficult task we will avoid, either for the body or for the mind or for the intelligence. You will try to avoid. Bhagavad Gita reading, people don't want to do. It's very difficult for the mind and for the intelligence to understand. So you will conveniently avoid it. So he is in bodily concept of life. Chanting Hare Krishna does not gratify your body. One round you can chant, 16 rounds they can't chant. Why? Because it doesn't gratify your material body, but it gratifies Krishna's senses. Because Hare Krishna is not meant to gratify your senses, it is meant to gratify Krishna's senses. But you're not understanding that. You're thinking, Prabhuji, I'm not getting any happiness, I'm not getting any happiness by chanting Hare Krishna. He's in bodily concept of life. He's chanting also is in bodily concept of life. He's chanting is in the material platform. His chanting is not on the spiritual platform. You see? Mechanically is producing a sound without any transcendental understanding of the Hare Krishna and its effect of the Hare Krishna and the purpose of chanting Hare Krishna. He does not know. And he's not getting, his senses are not getting excited. Therefore, Hare Krishna chanting becomes difficult for him. Bhagavatam reading becomes difficult for him. Sense is not getting excited. That means you should know he is in bodily concept of life. He is absorbed in bodily concept of life. When one's only concern is security for the body, happiness of the body, pleasure for the body, and avoid all the inconveniences for the body, that means he is in bodily concept of life. It's a practical way of detecting oneself. Hmm. Basically, summing up the whole thing, basically, when one works only for the welfare of the body alone, without any regard to the soul, he is in bodily concept of life. There's no consideration of the soul and the soul's needs. When one's only consideration and botheration is only about the body and bodily needs, that means he is in bodily concept of life. But when one is concerned about the soul and his needs, the soul's needs, then he is in spiritual platform. And the work associated accordingly is either transcendental work or material work. Okay, now next question. What is the defect of being in bodily concept? What is the problem? Ultimately, it comes to that point, because if you have to take a step to come to spiritual platform, I am happy, right? Why are you bothering me with this preaching, self-realization? Why are you bothering me? Even when you go to preaching, the first thing they'll say, you are not happy, we will say. You have to come to spiritual platform. Why should I come to spiritual platform? I am happy. What is the problem with being in bodily consciousness? What is the problem with the bodily concept of life? What is the defect? This way to detect again. Let's see. So here in this verse it is said, Prabhupada writes in the translation, if in the bodily conception of life, the defect is one remains in darkness. This is the problem. This is the defect. One remains in darkness. What is darkness? Next, Prabhupada says, darkness means without self-realization. When one is not self-realized, one does not know that his identity is self or spirit soul and thinks he is the body. And everything concerning his body is his true identity. This body has taken birth in so and so place. This body speaks a certain language. It has a certain culture. And I identify that as myself. I'm a Tamilian. I'm a Keralite. I'm an Andhraite. I'm an Indian. I'm a human being. I'm a male. I'm a female. I'm an animal. These are all being observed in bodily consciousness. So this is darkness or ignorance of your true self or true identity of what you are. So darkness means ignorance of self-realization. So what is self-realization? Self-realization is to realize the truth that I am a spirit soul, part and parcel of Krishna. I am a spirit soul is only half truth, not full truth. Self-realization, most people think, is to understand or realize that he is spirit, not the body. And they think that is self-realization. That is not self-realization. Self-realization has two aspects. One is to know my spiritual identity, I am a soul. The second part of that is soul, but I am part and parcel of Krishna. Your identity comes because of a connection with Krishna. Otherwise, your identity less. Your complete identity is you are part and parcel of Krishna, the Supreme Spirit. This is complete self-realization. Simply knowing I am Brahman is not self-realization. Shuddha Buddhayaha, Bhagavatam rather says, his intelligence is impure. Because of his disconnection with Krishna, he will fall down from the platform of self-realization. Because his self-realization is not complete and perfect. So he will fall down. Without your connection with Krishna, your realization is impure, incomplete, and impure. So I am spirit soul, part and parcel of Krishna, and loving servant of Krishna eternally. This is complete understanding of self-realization. When one is situated in this platform and all his actions prove his understanding, he is a self-realized soul. So, so to realize this truth is the only business in human life. This is what the Shastras are saying. And therefore, to realize this truth, you require a facility, opportunity, that is called the human body. So you are given the opportunity, okay, now you practice self-realization and become self-realized, free from the bodily concept. Practice. We give you the opportunity. Just like, remember, I was doing our science subjects. They used to give us a lab because in the theory class, the teacher will teach us mm, some certain chemical equations. Then they will say, okay, the theory is over. Let's go to the lab now. Let's perform this experiment now. It's like that, okay, you know you're not the body, your spirit, soul. Now, how do I practice it and realize it? I require a lab, a medium, apparatus, tool to do that experiment. That tool is called this material body, human body. Um, Human body. So, with this human body, we can experiment and succeed in realizing I'm a spirit soul with a particular kind of senses like the tools and the apparatus in the science lab. If you don't have, you cannot perform that um, experiment. Hmm. So it is given. That opportunity is given to us. So realize the truth, how I am covered by this body and therefore forgotten my identity as a soul. This is an important point. A very simple, basic point, but the most striking thing which practically 100% everybody is missed out. This body is covering the soul. Hmm. Therefore, the soul is not seen, not to be seen. And therefore, you mistake your identity as what is seen externally. Just like in a drama, Prabhupada gave this example. In a drama, suppose you take a certain role in a drama. Then, according to the role, you put a certain costume, certain dressing you have, makeup, everything. Then, when you're playing that role, nobody can identify you are so and so. They think you are so and so, what you are in the drama. Your own friend may be acting in the drama. One place Prabhupada quotes, your own friend may be acting in the drama, but you will not know because of the makeup, because of the costume. You will not know. Point one. No, point two. When that person is acting in the drama, sometimes he becomes so absorbed in the drama that he forgets that he is actually acting. He forgets. And he thinks that he is that role. He is that so and so in the drama, and that is his identity. Completely forgets himself, his true identity. Isn't it? Exactly like that in our life. Although I am a spirit soul, I have taken up a dress and the costume and the makeup and the role of a human being, role of a butterfly, role of a male, role of a female. But I have become so much engrossed and absorbed in that role, I am thinking, now I am the male, I am the female. Long back, I remember they used to say, I don't know how many of some of you might know, Shivaji Ganeshan, one Tamil actor is there. Some of you might be knowing. Suppose one of the top leading actors of 1970s, Shivaji Ganeshan. The speciality of his acting is, they say, he acts in such a way, he whatever role you give him, he becomes that role and then he acts. Therefore, there is reality. It's called reality show. Sometimes they use that word. It feels so real. When he acts, it feels so real. Like that, Maya presently has influenced us so much, 100% perfection. Because Krishna, whatever he does, Prabhupada says elsewhere, Krishna is a perfectionist. And whatever Krishna creates also, they are perfectionists. So Krishna's external energy or material energy called Durga, who prepares these costumes and this body. So she is also perfectionist. She does not leave any mistake. So the makeup, the role, the dialogues are so perfect that you actually think you are that. So that's our present condition. So because I have entered this body and taken up the role of a male or a female or a human being or a cat or a dog or an Indian or a Christian or a Muslim or a Hindu, I think I am that. Be engrossed. So it's a false identification. It's called identity crisis. We have come to the point of identity crisis, not knowing what we are. Hmm? So therefore, the soul has forgotten his identity as a spirit soul. Myself, I have forgotten my identity as a soul. Now I am thinking this role play as myself. So this is the defect of bodily concept of life. It puts you in a state, in a false state of existence and identity and life. This is the defect. Then what does this defect lead to? Somebody may say, okay, Fine, okay. I lost my identity. I'm assuming I'm something else. Okay. What's the problem? What the consequence? Let's see. So, uh, Rishabhadeva, in his teachings to his sons, he explains the consequence of being in bodily concept. He says, पराभवस्तावद् अबोधजाता यावन्न जिज्ञासत यत आत्मतत्त्वम् यावत् क्रियास्तावत् इदं मनो वै कर्मात्मकं येन शरीरबन्धः. This is the problem. The consequence is serious. See, sometimes consequence is not very serious, you may neglect. But if the consequence is serious, you have to take an action to safeguard yourself, to save yourself. What is that? What is Rishabdev telling? Rishabdev is one of the incarnations of Vishnu. In his instructions to his 100 sons, he made this statement: the danger of being in bodily consciousness of life, or the danger is this. So, parabhavastavat abodha jata. He says that again, see the tavat and yavat clause is here also it is coming. Here you see tavat and yavat in today's verse. As long as yavat, one is in bodily concept of life, tavat badhya badakatam yat, he will continue to be responsible for material activities, material actions, and therefore he has to suffer reactions of happiness and distress. As long as, so long. Here also we see here. Parabhavas tavad abodha jata yavant. Tavat yavat. Yavad na jignasata yata atma tattvam. Then again, yavat kriyas, tavat idam mano vai. See, two times is used. Tavat, yavat, yavat, tavat. Let's understand. It's very interesting equation. So, mano vai karmatmakam yena sharira bandhaha. So, this is the problem he has fixed here. What is that? Parabhava means failure. Parabhavaha. What is failure? When is one considered to be a failure in life? Not when one does not earn money or does not make a house within his lifetime. People all think, if I don't make a house, what? How many years I worked? No, people look down upon me. That's not called failure. You see, what is failure? Rishabdev is saying here. Failure is parabhavas. The failure is tavat abodha jata. So long you don't come out of the ignorance of bodily concept of life, because you're born in ignorance. Abodha jata. See, our jataha, our birth is not bodha. Bodha means being in knowledge. Abodha means being in ignorance. So abodha jata, our birth itself is in ignorance. Krishna also talks about that in the Bhagavad Gita. We are born in ignorance, we are born in duality. So Rishabdev is saying, one is considered to be a failure in life as long as he does not make inquiry about his real identity. Parabhavastavat abodha jata. Life is considered to be a failure. Parabhava. So long. Tavat. Na jignasata atmatattvam. So long. Na jignasata atmatattva. He does not inquire. Na jignasa atmatattva, about his true identity. So long he does not inquire about what he is. What is his identity? What is the purpose of his existence in this world? That purpose comes after you know your identity. Your purpose is connected with your identity. If you think you are the body, your purpose of life is sense gratification. If you think you are spirit soul, your purpose of life is self-realization. If you think you are the body, your material duties. If you think you are a spirit soul, your spiritual duties. See, the whole turn takes place just by this understanding. Such a serious thing. That's why the very first lesson Krishna begins Bhagavad Gita is about this teaching about the soul, different from the body. It's connected with your fighting duty also, as far as the Gita is concerned. Unless you know your duty, whom are you fighting for? What are you fighting for? Krishna said, if you're killing of your own account, that is ahankara. But if you're killing on my account, that is self-realization. See how the whole identity is a game changer. Killing remains same. There's no change in killing business. Because it's a Kshatriya. Because it's a Kshatriya, killing business cannot change. Killing business has to continue, whether in ignorance or after realization, self-realization. Killing will continue. But one is bondage, one is liberation. So, parabhavastavad bodha jata yavat na jignasateta atmatattvam. One is considered to be a failure in life as long as he does not make inquiry about his real identity. That is the failure. Not that I didn't earn money, I didn't earn material degree, I don't have a house. That is not considered failure. This is failure. If he does not know his identity or does not at least take the trouble to investigate his identity, inquire about his identity, then what will be the consequence? Manovai karmatmakam. And then what is he busy with? Manaha karma atmakam. His mind is absorbed in karma atmakam. Simply fruitive activity. For satisfying this body, enjoyment of this body. So simply if he is working for fruitive results through fruitive activity, which is meant to satisfy one's senses, then if his mind is absorbed in this way, all the time absorbed in fruitive activity for fruitive results, for sense gratification. Fruitive activity leading to fruitive results, which will fetch you sense gratification. Then what is the problem? Yena sharira bandha. He has to continue the transmigration of repeated birth and death. He has to transmigrate from one body to another. He will not come out of the cycle of birth and death. This is the problem. So, sharira bandha. If you don't come out of bodily concept of life, then the problem will be sharira bandha. You will be bound in this body, one after another, in different kinds of bodies, based on karmatmaka manasa. The consciousness of your mind, what your mind is thinking, what your mind is desiring. If it is desiring in a human way, you get a human body. If it's desiring in an animalistic way, you get an animal body. Desiring in a tigerish way, you get a tiger's body. Desiring in like a snake, you get a snake's body. You want to enjoy like a snake, get snake senses. To enjoy like a dog, get a dog's senses. To enjoy like a male, you get male senses. You want to enjoy like a female, you get female senses. To enjoy like a devata, you get a devata's senses and body. You want to enjoy like a devil, you get a devil's body and devil's senses. There also enjoyment is there and suffering is there. Karmatmaka manasa, where your mind is absorbed. So, what is the recommendation? Therefore, Rishabh says, recommendation is evam mana karma vasham prayungte avidyayatman upadiyamane pritir nayavan mayi vasudeve na muchyate deha yogena tavat. Again, here also yavat tavat clause Rishabh has used. It's very interesting. So here he is saying mana vashaha prayungte. Vashaha means to be under the control of manaha. The mind, vashaha, is in the control of karma vashaha. Under the control of karma, material karma. Evam. Manaha karma. So long the mind is absorbed in material consciousness, fruitive work, prayunte, avidyayatman, without having any sense of spiritual identity. Avidya atmana. Atma's avidya. Avidya of the atma. Then deha yogena tavat. Na muchyate. He will not get liberation from the cycle of birth and death. Na muchyate deha yoga. Deha yoga means getting one body after another body. It's called deha yoga. Na muchyate. He will not be freed from that cycle. So, see the yavat and tavat clause here. Pritir nayavan mayi vasudeva. As long as yavat, as long as pritir nayavat. If you don't develop love for mayi vasudeve, Rishabdev is speaking, therefore he is saying, Mayi, unto me, because he is Vasudeva. Mayi Vasudeva Priti. So long you don't develop love for Vasudeva, Tavat, that long. I'm sorry, as long as you don't develop love for Vasudeva, Mayi Vasudeva Pritihi, then na muchyate deha yogena tavat. That long you will not get liberated from this material body or the transmigration of birth and death cycle. So, uh, that is the defect of bodily concept of life, that it puts us in the cycle of birth and death. And all your actions are performed in ignorance of the true self. And therefore, when you perform your actions in ignorance referring to the bodily concept of life, you are self responsible for your actions. Then you have to go through the reactions of those actions. But there's an exemption for this. That is described in the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, verse number 17. Krishna says, Yasya na ahankrita bhavaha. Because we think when you have to act, I require to act, use my senses, my body, my mind, my intelligence. How will I act otherwise? How do you act in this world? You have this body, you have your mind, your intelligence, you act with that. But all these things are grouped around ahankara, the ego. So there is ahankara called false ego. So there is also true ego. So Krishna is saying to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita how to act, the art of work or working in this world. Yoga karmasu kaushalam. The art of working in this world is what is defined as yoga. Yoga means the art of working in this world. How to work in this world without getting entangled by the reactions of the work, by the sins or the sinful reactions. Work, and that work must be liberating. That is called yoga. So, yoga means a work which is liberating you, liberating the soul from the bodily concept of life, from the repeated cycle of birth and death. So, every action you do, kaya, vacha, manasa, should be yoga. Could be your breathing also, not simply pranayama and focusing on the airs within the body. That's not yoga. Yoga means activities which are meant for purification of the soul, making him realize his true identity. So, yasya na ahankrita bhava, when one na ahankrita, when one works without false ego. See, work remains same, but without false ego, buddhir yasya na lipyate, and when one works uh, uh, without his intelligence being entangled in material consciousness, then na lipyate. Uh, Nalipte means without getting entangled. Buddhir is intelligence not entangled in material uh, consciousness. Then Hatvapi Sa Imal Lokan. He may be killing left, right, center, everyone in this world. Imal Lokan. Hatvapi goes on killing, not madly, goes on killing, but his intelligence is not entangled. And he's not motivated by false ego to kill. See the two clauses? No, he's killing, but his motivation is not false ego, self-aggrandizement, to show off his power. No, none of those things. And his intelligence is not bewildered, not entangled in material consciousness. Then, even if he goes on killing, Hatva Pisa Ima Lokan, Na Hanti, Na Nibadyate. He may be killing, but though he kills men in this world, is not the slayer, Na Hanti. He's not a slayer, he's not the killer. Then, na nibadyate, nor is he bound by his killing. You cannot hold him account for his actions of killing. Hmm. So, uh, I'll conclude in the nice purport Prabhupada says in this regard elsewhere. Very nice purport with Prabhupada. What a beautiful verse. And a secret Krishna is revealed to Arjuna. One who is not motivated by false ego, whose intelligence is not entangled, though he kills men in this world, is not the killer, not the slayer, nor is he bound by his action. But Kamsa is thinking, I am the killer or I am getting killed. That means he's in bodily concept. To think I have killed all the sons of Devaki, and his bodily concept to think I am going to get killed by Krishna. Both ways in bodily concept. Krishna is saying one is not motivated by false ego, whose intelligence is not entangled, he is actually not killing. But still the killing action is happening, no? Practically, then what is that killing? How do you analyze and understand? We'll see how Prabhupada explains. You see, Arjuna thought himself to be the doer of action, but he does not consider the supreme sanction within and without. If one does not know that a super sanction is there, why should he act? That means if there's no sanction of Krishna, you should not even act in any matter, in any regard, even in the matter of eating or sleeping, and even sex life and defense. You should not act. That is the standard. So there must be a prompt from the within or without from the spiritual master. Otherwise, you should not eat, you should not sleep, you should not work. If you work, then you are taking responsibility for yourself. You will be bound by that responsibility. You have to suffer the reactions. So that is the idea mentioned here. If one does not know super sanction is there, why should he act then? But one who knows the instrument of work, himself as the worker and the Supreme Lord as the Supreme Sanctioner, is perfect in doing everything. Such a person is never in illusion. Now one important point. Personal activity and responsibility arise from false ego and sense of godlessness. See what an important point Prabhupada is making. Personal activity. Prabhu, people say when we go, Swamiji, I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to, so many things, I have got responsibility. You people don't have any responsibility. You people have no work. So personal activity and responsibility arise from a sense of false ego, a sense of godlessness. Godlessness meaning not being in line with the Lord or the Lord's plan. Lord's plan of action for this particular jiva, for that particular jiva. That you have to find out. Either from within, and if you cannot find it from within as Paramatma in the Lord, you have to go to the Guru and ask, what does Krishna want me to do now? Or you go to the spiritual authority, you ask him, Prabhu, what should I do? Therefore, we said we have to practice this. We should not do any activity which is not sanctioned and authorized by the spiritual authority. Because then that arises from a sense of false ego. That's what Krishna is saying here. Personal activity and responsibility arises from false ego and godlessness or a lack of Krishna consciousness. So then, Prabhupada is continuing. Anyone who is acting in Krishna kindness under the direction of the Super Soul or the Supreme Lord Krishna, even though killing does not kill, nor is he ever affected with the reaction of such killing. You cannot hold him responsible. You killed, therefore you are responsible for such killing. No. I have acted on the direction and order of the Lord directly or the spiritual master. So Prabhupada gives an example in this regard. Just like a soldier fights in a battle on the order of the army officer, army chief, and he may kill a lot of soldiers on the opposite side. But he cannot be held responsible for such killing. Rather, he is awarded for such killing, for executing the order of the chief army officer. But if there's no order of the chief army officer and then you go on killing, even one person, you will be imprisoned immediately. Then you can't argue, I have killed about 2,000 men, soldiers on the battlefield, and I got the reward. Republic Day is coming shortly, so they'll be given award. But the battle is over, the order is withdrawn, and then you kill on your own account, even one person, you will be imprisoned. So therefore, Krishna kindness gives immunity from all reactionary activities of one's karma. If you perform and execute under the order of Krishna or Krishna is representing the spiritual master or the spiritual authority. But because Kamsa does not know that, he is thinking, I have killed where he has killed. I am going to get killed, all in bodily concept of life. Therefore, Kamsa continues to be responsible for his actions because he does not know the signs of the self. But for the time being, Krishna opened the door of transcendental knowledge for him little time to know and figure out these things. Actually, he begged pardon. He fell down and he cried to Devaki and Vasudeva. He fell down and caught their feet. But that realization didn't stand long, unfortunately, because of the bad association, as I told. Again, his mind changed. But for the time being, he was graced by the Lord for being in a state of self-realization temporarily. Then the window was open, you should enter off. The window gets closed, then you don't have opportunity. So you should take that advantage of this window opening whenever the Lord gives that opportunity. So stop it. Gantrat Shrimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Prabhupada ki jai.